Hi guys, so this video vlog is going to be probably a little long because I have a lot of stuff on my mind. I have a lot of things that I want to share with you guys, and I just have some inspiration to give to people in dating relationships, especially women who are in dating relationships. It just kind of came to me like as a whisper this morning when I was meditating that God placed this message on my heart, and I figured that I will share it with you guys. So, by the way, I am in this meditation room here at my workplace, and I love it. It's very quiet and serene, and I get to kind of relax and meditate and focus and be able to just kind of get away from all of the hustle and bustle of being a PhD student. But by the way, like this is week number 8, I believe, for my PhD program, and I just left my stats class, and oh my gosh, I don't even want to talk about the quiz I just took. And the crazy thing, you know how like you know an answer on a quiz, but for some reason like it's just not coming to you. I gotta take off this jacket because I'm hot. But that's pretty much what happened to me today, like while taking my quiz. Like the answer was like right there in my face. And I knew how to do the computation. It came to me slow. And I think because I have a lot on my mind. By the way, this room is hot. Oh, gosh, it's hot. But I had a lot on my mind this morning. It's just some things have been weighing on my mind. And that's the reason why I feel that I need to go ahead and make this video, because I just got to clear my head. But about like, and I'm kind of hungry. I need to go eat. Ugh, hot, hungry, not a good combination when I'm trying to do this video. But I'm going to stick it in there, stick it out, and do it anyway. Wait, is this, what is this? Time, okay. So, stress. One thing I would like to talk about here in this video is how relationships can be, a good thing in a person's life to be involved in a relationship with someone else. I mean, it's like you can have an accountability partner, you have someone to fall back on, you have someone to support you, someone to listen to you, someone to talk, someone you can talk to when you're going through different things in life. Just a friend. I mean, just having that person who you can trust, who you can share secrets with, share ideas with, and kind of bounce ideas off of is priceless, I think. But the problem, I think, in a lot of dating relationships where it goes wrong, and there are a lot of different reasons why relationships just don't work. I've had my fair share of friendships and relationships with people. So I think I have enough background experience to be able to, talk, have an intellectual conversation with you guys about the topic of on dating relationships and why they don't work. Number one, I would say, is that it's what sticks out to me the most in new relationships is how they start off peaches and cream. Everybody is just getting along and all lovey-dovey and trying to impress the other person. And almost it's like there's an overcompensation, trying to impress the next person, that you almost kind of put your own needs and wants on the back burner just to appease the other person. So I noticed like that's pretty common, like in new relationships, that are just budding and, just beginning. Whereas as you get some time under your belt in that relationship, things begin to change. And I think after being around a person for so long, there are things that can grow on you, that can cause some stress in the relationship, like getting too comfortable around a person. Maybe you're around that person so much to the point where every little thing that they do annoys you. And it can sound like, what is that word? When you're irritated, you're feeling very irritable, where you just have a very low tolerance for like anything negative, or anything that is, distressing. You just have a very low tolerance for it. Just opposition, that comes in a relationship, the riffles and disagreements. Sometimes when you are around a person for so long, it can be very taxing, and it can get to the point where that person becomes almost like a they become like a pet peeve of yours, in a sense, where, and that's crazy to think of a person as a pet peeve, but there are signs in marriages actually that have been predicted by researchers, some noticeable signs that you can tell that a relationship or a marriage is about to dissolve and there's about to be a breakup. One of it is just having this, they call it, strife is coming to my mind, but it's not strife. It's like a certain bitterness. And marriage counselors know what I'm talking about. It's just the term is escaping my mind, but the idea is that there becomes this tension between the two partners in the relationship, where everything, as like I was talking about before, there's a very low tolerance for anything that goes wrong in the relationship. And then it doesn't necessarily have to be something that goes wrong either. It can be something that just the person does, and it just bothers you to the point where it's just annoying. And I think that a lot of relationships that end up breaking up have gotten to that point, where they are just tired of their partners. Like, do you guys, like, anybody that's watching this who is in a relationship, answer this question for me below. Do you ever get tired of your partner, and are there things that really annoy you? So that is basically one example that I know for sure that leads to relationship breakup. Usually there's the person just becomes just this thorn in the ass that you just don't want to be around. It's just so annoying, and it's just like, ugh, please get away from me, or else, like, I can't take any more of you. And I think that's a sad place to be in a relationship, because when you think about the nature of love, and relationships, it's supposed to be a happy thing. It's supposed to be a positive thing, a very good feeling that you have when you're thinking about the person that you love. It's not supposed to be like, I don't want to be around this person, get this person away from me. But I do think that there are certain things that can build up to that point in a relationship. There's a lot of talk about communication and the importance of communication in relationships. But like, when people talk about communication, people talk about, like, it's important to communicate, that, the more communication, the better, the more that the communication is open, where the two people in the relationship can openly and freely come and talk to each other about anything, like, the better chances that the relationship is going to work and it's going to last. But however, there's little talk about the quality of communication, like the importance of having good quality communication in relationships. There's little talk about that, and I think that is important, definitely, when it comes to sustaining and building healthy relationships, is that not only should couples communicate with each other, but they should communicate in such a way that is effective communication. What is effective communication? Effective communication is when there is a message that is being exchanged between, two or more parties, and a person, let's say, you experienced, you had a bad day, in a relationship. And effective communication in that context, let's say for one person who was having a bad day, may look a little something like this. And it takes place in the context of either face to face, I would say, or if you can't talk to the person face to face, over the phone. Texting is not an effective form of communication. Let's just get that. It's convenient, but not always effective, because a lot of things get lost in translation when sending a text message. And a lot of things can be misinterpreted, I think, when sending a text message. There are a lot of non-verbal cues that are at play when you're using text messaging. For instance, time. How long does it take for you to reply? Sometimes that can be interpreted as that person does not care, because if I send you a text message at 2 o'clock p.m., you don't reply to my text message at 4 p.m., apparently you just don't care about my text message. So, and that's just a general rule of thumb, I think. So, text messaging is not necessarily an effective form of communication, although it can be convenient. That a lot of people do rely on text messaging and emailing. The best way, I would say, is face to face, but if that cannot be achieved, then over the phone. And what it will look like if a person had a problem in a relationship or was stressed, and let's say they had a bad day and they wanted to talk to their partner about it, they would give their person a phone call if they're away from them, not able to see them face to face, and express what they're feeling and what's going on. And on the other end, that partner will be open, and not just open in terms of receptive and hearing what they're saying, but literally they will like open their heart and listen to what that person has to say. Really listen to what that person is trying to say. Now, are there certain things that can impede effective communication even when it's face to face or over the phone? Most certainly, there are a lot of things that can impede communication. I mean, if you live in a busy city, there's a lot of noise, so that could get in the way of being able to get your point across to someone. I don't know, just not having quiet space, not having the time to be able to communicate, just different things. But I think definitely just having that line of communication open when a person has a concern in a relationship, they know that they are able to call that other person, and that person will be able to, listen to what they have to say. Now, granted, most people have jobs, right? So they may not be able to take the call right away or even address, the problem, concern right away over the phone. But there are ways that you can show that you do care about someone and what they have to communicate to you, even if you're busy. There are ways that you can say, okay, hold on, I'm busy right now. Let me give you a call back in a respectful tone. Not, hold on, let me hang up and call you right back, and then just disappear. Now, in the context of a dating relationship, there can be a huge problem, I think, when it comes to communication, over the phone, especially over the phone. There's just something wrong. I just think there's something weird about when you're in love with someone and you're dating someone and you're talking to that person over the phone. If you live in the same city, it's like, why not just make the time to go see that person face to face? But definitely communication is important, and one way you can definitely tell if there is a breakdown in a relationship is when you see a breakdown in communication in the relationship. A breakdown in communication relationship basically looks like, they call it stonewalling. This is one form of a breakdown, basically, where one partner basically just ignores what the other person has to say, has no interest, concern whatsoever. They basically block that person out. So as The more the person, who is trying to communicate something, get their point across, the more they're trying to get it across, the more the other person is just not listening to what they have to say. Eventually, as you can imagine, it's going to create this atmosphere in the relationship where there is tension, where there is a feeling that the person is not being heard, being understood. And what usually happens after that, a person becomes angry. If the person is still attempting to try to communicate what they're trying to say and is not being heard and they're angry, what does that look like? Yelling. Well, I know you heard me. You didn't answer your phone when I called you. And what are you doing? And just yelling, just outright angry, And does that person have a right to be angry? Yes, I think that everyone has a right to be upset and angry, especially if you are relying on a person to listen to what you have to say. You expect that person to be there for you and hear what you have to say, but they shut you out. You have a right to be angry and upset. And so when you're angry and upset and you're still trying to communicate and you're yelling and then that person is not receptive, does that person have the right to ignore you? I think yes, because at that point, you're communicating in a way that is not necessarily the most receptive way to communicate. I think most people are not going to receive anything when it's being yelled at them or is coming from an angry place, I think. But I think it's the both partners' job and responsibility in a relationship in the context of communication to do their part in effectively communicating. So whether you are the recipient of the information or you're the person given the information, I think that if you're trying to communicate something, the person is not listening to what you have to say, I think the best thing to do, because you're going to get angry. The best thing to do is just simply hang up the phone, I think, and to express, when you are calmed down, that that person did not hear you and that how that made you feel. Now, is that likely to happen? Absolutely no. I mean, naturally, what happens is, you're not being heard. You're going to start yelling. You're going to start cursing. You're going to start just going off the limb. And eventually, over time, if a person is attempting to communicate something to their partner, and more often than not, they are feeling that they are not being heard, what's going to happen? That person is going to shut down. That person is not going to want to have anything else to say to their partner. Why? Because their partner is no longer a confidant, a person they can confide in and rely on and lean on and share secrets with or share their deepest concerns with. They no longer become that person. They become a person that is a wall to them, and no one wants to talk to a wall. No one in their right mind says, I have a lot on my mind. Let me go talk to this wall. Or you know what? I have a lot on my mind. Let me go talk to a dial tone. So eventually what will happen, and if you are in a relationship where your partner is attempting to try to communicate something to you and you have been shutting down on them, you have not been making yourself available, what's going to happen is the exact same thing that you're doing to them. They're going to do it to you. So they're going to shut down. They're not going to want to hear what you have to say when you want to talk to them. Why? Because it's just only human nature to mimic behavior, especially behavior from a person who is close to you. And this applies to parent relationships with their kids. Like, think about it. If you, as parents, you are supposed to be the model for your kids and demonstrate positive, healthy behavior for your kids. So if you are not being receptive to what your kids have to say, if your kids had a long day at school and they come home and they want to talk to you, but you shut down on them, what's going to happen? Your kids are going to begin to shut down on you, and they're going to find another outlet. They're going to find another outlet. And I say that twice because that is so important. I think that a lot of people in relationships just don't get it. And they wonder why people leave. They wonder why people cheat, which I'm going to address in this video as well in a little bit more depth. But think about it. If you are not making yourself available to your partner in the way that they anticipate or expect you to be, a person can do one or two things. They can wait and try to work things out and figure out what's the problem. Or they can say, or actually they can do three things. They can wait and try to figure out what the problem is. Secondly, they can just ignore it, the fact that they're being ignored and not being heard. Or third, they can do what most people in their right mind do, which is find somebody else to listen to them and find someone else who they feel can relate and identify with what they're going through. And this happens so much in relationships to the point where I don't understand why people are surprised when relationships don't work out. It happens so much to the point where you see it in other relationships where a guy may go out and cheat on his girl because he's not getting something. He's missing something in that relationship that he is expecting to get from her, his partner, but he's not getting. And so he assumes that he can find it somewhere else. Am I condoning cheating? Absolutely no. I am not. But I am making it clear that there is a cause and effect in relationships, and sometimes people act clueless as if they don't see it, or sometimes they don't care. Because, and thinking about and talking about the whole thing about caring, let's go back. Because you have to ask yourself, why am I in the relationship in the first place? Why am I with this person in the first place? Do I love them? Do I care about that person? If your answer is yes, then you're going to do what's necessary to save the relationship. And I can say this, speaking from personal experience, is that if you want a relationship to last, and the problems will arise. Problems will always be in relationships. It doesn't matter how compatible a couple may be. There will always be problems in a relationship. But here's the thing. If you really want your relationship to last, you want to nip problems in the bud early on. What does that mean? If there is a problem that you and your partner have, it can be anything. It can be chores, sharing the chores in the house. It can be, I don't know, a number of things. So many problems arise. Insecurities that a person may have, just problems with communication, whatever. If they are not nipped in the bud early on, and when I say early on, I mean in the moment when the problem arises, that means that it needs to be handled. It needs to be addressed. If it's just pushed under the rug and the couple feels like, okay, we'll sleep it off and hopefully it goes away, the next day comes, that problem is going to grow even bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point where you ever see relationships that have these crazy, nasty breakups where there's this huge explosion and just all kinds of things are happening. I mean, you have in marriages you have nasty custody battles. You have people fighting over ownership of property. I mean, you have, people vandalizing people's property. Like, I'm talking about nasty breakups. When you see things like that, you know that is an accumulation of problems. And I think that word that I was trying to think of in the beginning, I think this is it, where a strong predictor of marital divorce or dissolution is having spite towards your partner. I think that somebody please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm gonna have to go research and I'll put the correct term. But there is a term that scientists, researchers have come up with that they have found to be true, that this is a common predictor of divorce. I mean, and divorce, and I'm saying divorce kind of in a general sense, but I mean, whether you're dating or whether you're married, I mean, you know that your relationship is headed down the wrong path and it's pretty much at risk for ending when there's this spite towards the other person. And a lot of times there's this tick for tat, like you have a feel the need to get back at the other person for whatever. And relationships are not supposed to be that way. Relationships are supposed to be about love, forgiveness. I mean, people throw around the word I love you all the time. I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. But I don't think they really know, what it means. And and that's when you have these crazy breakups, because people really just don't know how to love each other. And I think, it's important to look at why couple relationships just don't last. And definitely communication. I mean, communication is essential to the health of a relationship, but it also can be almost like a predictor. Like if you can look at a relationship and assess how strong the relationship is based on the quality of communication between the two people in the relationship. And I haven't even began to address other factors that can lead to divorce and separation, between two people in relationships, like problems, addiction, being addicted to drugs, gambling, alcohol. I think drug addiction is a huge issue in and of itself. But when it happens in the context of, a relationship, it can be magnified 10 times even more. Drug addiction, mental health issues, I think that a person has. Those two combined, drug addiction and mental health issues, just taking a look at a person's own individual problems and how the problems that they have can actually be risk factors in a relationship, for relationship problems and, future divorce and marriages. It's like sometimes these things are just overlooked and people are just kind of like in the moment, they meet a person, they get this, giddy feeling inside and they just think that, this is just the right person to be with. I've met my knight in shining armor, I met my princess, this is her. But very little time, I think, and attention is put towards how to build healthy relationships that last and that are vibrant and that are strong. And I think when you look at a lot of relationships, a lot of relationships are not strong. They're not, first of all, they don't last long, so that's definitely a sign right there to let you know. I mean, the strength and the quality of the relationship is looking at how long that it lasts. It's not to say that some relationships aren't supposed to be short-lived, because yes, I do believe that there are sometimes, that some people just come into your life, they say for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, and not everybody is meant to be in our lives forever. And that's perfectly fine. I think that that is a huge important thing to take note of when you are being involved with someone, whether it's on a platonic level, sexual level. Ask yourself, who is this person to me in my life, and what is their purpose in my life? And, ask yourself, how long maybe is this person supposed to be in my life? Because sometimes we have people that we've have kept in our lives for years when they really probably weren't only supposed to be there for, a day or two. And we somehow made a decision to say, this person, I'm going to keep around me for a while. And not realizing that that was never God's plan. That was just something that we did out of convenience. And I think it's just important, I think, just to kind of look at relationships. I always thought that, I think that it's really important to not only look at relationships in terms of, what are the risk factors for divorce and for separation, but kind of look at relationships in the sense that how can I build, a strong, positive, long lasting relationship with my partner? Ask yourself that question, like, how can I build a relationship that lasts? Like, especially if you say, I want this person to be in my life forever, and it's not just a man who can make that decision. Women, we have the right to make a decision about who we want in our lives and how long we want them there. And so, for the women out there, ask yourself, how long is this person supposed to be in my life? And what is that predicated upon? Like, what is that based on? If you say this person's supposed to be in your life for 5 years, why? Why are they in your life for 5 years as opposed to 1 year or 1 month? Why should this person spend 10 years, in your life? Especially if you have children, you have kids. You have to ask yourself that. It's so important because sometimes, especially women, I think, are the most guilty for doing this, for falling really hard in love and putting other people's needs, above our own, because we are caretakers, we are the providers, we are nurturing, we do have hearts. Not to say men don't have hearts, but I think that women are a little bit more sensitive in relationships, and because we have that extra added layer of sensitivity and lovingness inside of us, I think sometimes we do become vulnerable, and we usually do fall victim to, being the one who is hurt in a relationship, the one whose feelings and concerns and thoughts are not heard, and are ignored, and we